Hey guys, before we get into the video, I want to let you know I'm doing commissions now. That's right, that means I'm doing drawings for you. If you guys want me to do a drawing for you, like you and Timmy Turner granting somebody a wish, or you and Danny Phantom fighting like 10 ghosts, or maybe drawing one of your characters, anything else, a Marvel character, any comic book character of any kind, anything you want me to draw, let me know, and just click the link down below in the description. That's right, doing drawings for you.
Fellow Dynamites, we are first in line to see the new Larry Potter movie.
You are correct, Flip. Larry Potter is awesome. He's my favorite magical gardener. I love the one where he found out his parents were weeds.
Yes, Sif, and I dig his enchanted leaf blower.
Me gusta, especialmente las muchas variedades de árboles y plantas mágicas.
Whatever you say, Hector Gonzalez.
We really need to take Spanish lessons.
Oh my gosh, it's the star of Larry Potter, Jojo Jollygood! Stay in crumpets!
Ay, caramba.
There's only one creature that attacks with an atomically hair-based weapon.
You don't mean...
Indeed I do. Cat Atomic!
Hi, fellas. Okay, let's get into this. Cat Atomic is a super scary guy. He was an ordinary cat who lived in the same pet store where you guys lived when you were just ordinary mice. He was there the night the weird meteor crashed into the pet store and changed your lives forever. It made you guys into the Dynamite, gave you cool costumes, awesome powers, made Hector Spanish and a genius, gave you guys awesome vehicles and a scrumptious headquarters.
Huh, that was one crazy meteor. Dynamite!
Thanks very much for watching that unreleased Cartoon Network pilot. I did that a few years ago and I really loved it. It's 2 minutes of a show that I thought was going to really turn into an awesome comedy, adventure, action show. Never materialized. This happens sometimes in Hollywood, but I hope you guys really enjoyed it. You know, when I first came up with Dynamite, it was a whole different concept. I really wanted to kind of make my version of the Thundercats, but with mice. You can see the drawings right here that I first did. I really drew these big muscular mice with armor and these cool motorcycles and tanks, and they really kind of look like Iron Man and just really futuristic mice, but I wanted them to be really, really tough. And I just love the name Dynamite. I think that's a fantastic name for a show. But I took it to Cartoon Network and they said, we love this, we love the name. I was like, great. And they said, can you make it a comedy? And I went, huh, I suppose so. So I looked at all the drawings I had, and they were just these big action, very, very serious drawings, and I realized I could never use these characters. So as happens a lot, you put those drawings aside, and I went a completely different direction. I just made them completely silly. I thought, okay, these guys are Ninja Turtles if the Ninja Turtles never did anything. If they were just sitting around with masks on, drinking soda, eating pizza, and doing nothing. And that's kind of where they came from. And I thought, let's name them all the same name, but like rhyming names. Zip, Skip, Flip, and then the last one will be something silly like, and I thought Hector Gonzalez, and he only speaks Spanish. And that's kind of where all that came from. You can see where some ideas start one way, and they end up a different way. Hey art fans, thanks so much for tuning in today. Good to have you guys here. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button down below. I'd appreciate that. Sitting here doing some cartoon art, or some cartoon work, I guess you would say. I love to draw. I do it all the time. I have the option of doing digital art on the iPad, or always going back to the sketchbook. I love drawing in my sketchbook a lot. I use these little zebra pens. They're kind of cool, like little paintbrushes for ink, you know? And I'm sitting here drawing this character, I guess some kind of a medieval kid. And as I'm drawing, you're like, oh, this character could probably become the star of a show, Nickelodeon or Disney or Cartoon Network or whatever. Even on YouTube you can make your own stuff. So it all starts with one drawing. And as I was drawing this guy, I wanted to make a video because I was reminded about being at Nickelodeon, and I had a situation happen years ago, about 6 years ago I believe, when I was given a 4-pilot deal by Nickelodeon, where I was doing Fairly Odd Parents at the time and doing TUFF Puppy, and then they wanted to see 4 new ideas from me. So they gave me this 4-pilot deal. And the deal was, 2 of the pilots had to be created solely by me, and 2 had to be created with other people. But I also wanted to be able to work with some great people for a long, long time too. Because like sometimes people come and go. If it's not their show, they get hired on another show and this and that. But if I was able to, I don't want to say the word trap, or if I was able to sell it, that'd mean I would be able to be guaranteed to work with them for a long time as long as the show was going. So, but anyway, had these 4 pilots I was working on at Nickelodeon. It was really cool. I started off by making a pilot that I created, and it was called The Buglies. It was about a family of bugs, and basically, imagine if you can a little world made of discarded human items. You know, like post office was a mailbox, a little mailbox, and like the shoe store was a shoe. Get it? The coffee house was a little coffee cup, stuff like that. You've seen this in Bug's Life and all this, but we wanted to make the backgrounds for the Buglies look a little bit different. We were using that concept of discarded human items, but we wanted it to be all done in photos. We were like, instead of drawing the backgrounds, we were finding photographs. Like the coffee house was like an actual photo of a coffee cup and stuff like that. So we had photos mixed with drawing, which was really cool, I thought. It was centered around a family called the Buglies, and it was Bernie Bugley was the dad. And he was a news reporter. He would report the news all over I think it was Bugsburg News, 10 o'clock. I was voiced by the great Jeff Bennett, who voiced Caswick on TUFF Puppy. And we had the mom named Barbie Bugley, who was a therapist. And she was very high-strung and just, very smart, but very just a really, I guess, a helicopter mom, very professional, voiced by the amazing Sherry O'Terry, who I later used in Bunsen as a beast.
Chicken in the bread pan, pack it out, Joe!
Buglies came before Bunsen. And the 2 kids in the show were Bobby Bugley, voiced by the amazing Ben Giroux, and Brittany Bugley, voiced by the awesome Renee Dorian. And had just a great time and writing this episode, writing this show. Because when you do a pilot, you have to be real expository in your dialogue. What I mean by that is you're introducing the characters for the first time, so it's like, if you weren't my sister, I would, that sort of thing. You've got to inform the audience the relationships. Bobby, go get your sister, or gosh, for a therapist, you sure are, and you need to say lines like that you wouldn't normally say in real life, only to tell the audience information about the characters. Anyway, the pilot was a lot of fun. It started off one way where Bobby's dad was a cop, but we ended up making Bernie a news reporter, because with a news reporter, you can have him help tell the story. And we're looking down now in the city of Bugsburg as the giant spider roams through town. You can sort of narrate the show right along with the characters as they're acting out the show. So a news reporter is always a fun character to put in a show. But the pilot for the Buglies was just great. I loved it. We ended up making a color animatic, and I believe we had music and sound effects. It was just like watching the real episode. It was really, really cool. All right, so that was the Buglies, pilot number 1. That was a lot of fun. It really came out awesome, and I was really hoping Nickelodeon would pick that one up. But they didn't. No big deal. And the next pilot I worked on was a pilot called Night and Dave. I love that title. In fact, that entire concept came from me writing down that title on a Post-it. I just wrote it down one day, Night and Dave, and I thought that was just a funny name. And so I called Ray DeLaurentis and Will Schifrin in my office, and my friend Mike Doherty. Mike Doherty was one of our character designers on Fairly Odd Parents for many years, and on TUFF Puppy. He has an amazing Instagram account. Go follow him at Mr. Doughy, D-O-U-G-H-Y. Very cool Instagram account. But Mike had been coming to me with some ideas. I thought Mike would be really fun to work with, so I called him in too. So I had Ray DeLaurentis, Will Schifrin, and Mike Doherty in. I said, hey, I got this idea. It's called Night and Dave. What do you guys think? And so we all started just pitching ideas. It ended up being this really cool medieval story about a kid named Dave who pulls a golden spork out of a stone. No one else can pull it out. Dave pulls this spork out, and now he's got this golden spork, and he suddenly becomes the king of a town called Wonderspork. So he's the king of this amazing kingdom called Wonderspork. He just wants to make the place better and more wonderful, and he has this great assistant who works in the castle. Her name is Gwendolyn, and she's like an inventor, and she helps him invent all this cool stuff to help make the kingdom a better place. But there's a bad guy called Lord Smackover who was promised the kingdom after all these years, and he doesn't get it. Dave gets to be the king. So Smackover, of course, wants to destroy Dave at any cost, and so that's the story of Night and Dave. Dave is just trying to be a good guy and run the kingdom, and Smackover is trying to destroy him with the help of his assistant magician guy named Dissiperio. Dissiperio is a magician dude who just hates Smackover and doesn't want to work with him at all. And we had a bunch of different designs for Dissiperio, and we had a bunch of different designs for Dave and Smackover, but I really loved working on this pilot particularly because I love medieval stuff and I love those type of sword and sorcery type of concepts, and it was really going to be cool. And again, just like the Buglies, we made an animatic of it. We didn't animate any of it. We actually did 2 versions of the pilot, and when I say 2 versions, There are actually about 300 versions because we had to keep rewriting the script so much. Because when you're developing something, the network will have you write it over and over again as notes come in and changes get made. It is a bit of a trying process. I challenge all of you out there, if you're a writer, don't get discouraged about having your stuff rewritten, because that's just part of the process. It's what you need to do. And believe it or not, in doing that process, you will become better at your craft. Sometimes it can get a little frustrating when you think something's perfectly right and perfectly great, and then the network wants to add this character in or this character, or you can't have a certain character because another show on the network has that character, like, so you have to change that character. So that can be a bit frustrating, but that was a lot of fun too, doing Night and Day. So now I come to my third pilot, and that's a pilot I've never talked about before. And I'm not going to talk about it now. I'm sorry. It's a very cool pilot that I think you'll love when you eventually see it. Only because I've never talked about it on my podcast or even this channel, and I kind of want to keep this one under wraps a little bit. It does involve two other really good friends of mine that created it with me. It was a pilot that was one of the ones that I created with other people. It involves a kid, and there you go. Hey, that narrows it down. I think you really like it. In fact, I might want to do a special video on it, and I might want to have them on to talk about it with me. So we worked just as hard on that one as the first two. You're talking months and months, almost a year and a half of work on that, while I'm doing Fairly Odd Parents, while I'm doing TUFF Puppy, and these other two pilots. Working on this third one was just as time consuming, and we put just as much effort into it, and it's a great idea, and I think you're really gonna like it when I eventually get around to telling you. So pilot number 3, you'll hear about it eventually. It was fortuitous that the fourth pilot that rolled around was Bunsen. Bunsen is a Beast. It was my fourth one. And I think by that time, the execs at Nickelodeon were kind of tired of dealing with my pilots. So I think they kind of left me more alone on that one. And Bunsen had the fewest amount of notes. I think they were just like, look, let's let him do it. Let's see what happens. And they let me do Bunsen. And ironically, that's the one that ended up getting picked up as a series. So Bunsen is a Beast came out of that 4-pilot deal. I wanted all 4 pilots to look different from each other. And I think when you see them all together, except for the third one, that's shit. But when you see them all together, they all do look very, very different. And that's one of the challenges too. If you are out there making cartoon ideas, or like a comic strip, or if you're into doing just dozens of awesome things all the time, see if you can do different styles. See if you can try things in a different way that you maybe never thought of, because it's just going to expand your horizons and make you a better creator and a better storyteller and a better artist all around. Just challenging yourself at all times makes you better. So yeah, so there were my 4 pilots. It was a blast to do them. I definitely want to show them here on the channel eventually. The actual animatics, I'll show those, but for now, hope you guys liked all the artwork we showed you. But it was really, really cool to work on that stuff with some great people. 2 I created on my own. That was Buglies and Bunsen. And then Night and Dave and Mystery Pilot number 3. Were created with other people. So those chances might roll around for you someday too. And remember, what if I'd done the same pilot 4 different times? That I don't think anyone would have taken them seriously at all. So again, that's where you have to challenge yourself. How can this one be different from the other one? Just remember that as you're moving forward in your amazing art career. Hey art fans, glad you guys are here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, I'm talking about a pilot I did a long time ago that I thought for sure was going to be huge. I thought for sure, boy, this will be huge. The idea is great. It'll be awesome. And it was called Batman. No, it was called Dan Danger. And it was a pilot I did while I was working on the Fairly Odd Parents pilot and the number of short cartoons I did over on the Oh Yeah cartoon show. Fairly Odd Parents was the main thing I was working on. While I was doing that, I had a friend of mine. His name was Steve Marmel. Really nice guy. We started working on this show together called The Dan Danger Show, and it was basically, really loved the idea too. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a show called The Crocodile Hunter, a guy named Steve Irwin. He wore like a safari outfit, and he'd talk like, he's an Australian guy, and he'd go out and he'd see all these amazing animals, and he'd talk about crocodiles and things like that. That was my Australian accent. I apologize to all my Australian friends right now. Anyway, Steve Irwin was fantastic, and he was great. He'd go out and do all these amazing, dangerous animal interactions, and be really kind of scary. But he was a really funny, affable guy. And we thought, man, we should make a cartoon about that guy. But how do we do it? We came up with an idea to do this show about a guy named Dan Danger. And it was all about this dude who could, wrestle alligators and fight lions and, climb the highest mountain and swim the deepest sea and all this sort of thing. But then when the cameras went off, he was actually a giant crybaby and everything was fake.
Get it away! Get it away! Get it away!
We start working on Dan Danger, and it was really a lot of fun. The way we designed the show to be was we'd start off with 2 kids at like a breakfast table, a couple bowls of cereal. We'd hear an announcer say, "Hey kids, do you like danger?" And one kid would go, "Yeah." We cut to 2 other kids. "Do you like excitement?" One kid would go, "Yeah." And then we cut to 2 other kids doing something, and the announcer would go, "Do you like broccoli?" And the kid would go, "Yeah." then you'll love today's Dan Danger Show. We really did it a lot like the old Bullwinkle show. Bullwinkle and Rocky, which I absolutely loved growing up by the great, amazing Jay Ward. So it had kind of that flavor to it where the announcer would break the fourth wall, and the story revolved around Dan Danger, this guy who was terrified of everything until the cameras were on, then he would pretend he was brave. And his producer, this woman named Deb, and Deb was the put-upon producer who was always trying to get Dan to do things and he wouldn't do them. And then we had Deb's daughter, a little girl named Ruthie, who was Dan's greatest fan and sidekick. And so it was always Dan and little Ruthie going on adventures. And Ruthie would always talk Dan into really being truly brave. And I thought that was just a great, great show. So anyway, we started doing the pilot of Dan Danger, and Fred Seibert, the producer of the Oh Yeah series, really loved it. And so he gave us 3 more. We actually did 4 episodes of Dan Danger, and they're all 7 minutes long. Fred Seibert at the time thought 7 minutes was the magic number because all the old Warner Brothers shorts were 7 minutes. And so even the original Fairly Odd Parents pilot was 7 minutes. When I told Fred Seibert that I wanted to make the Fairly Odd Parents episodes 11 minutes long after we got picked up, he wasn't very happy about that. We had to have a little talk and I convinced him. But Dan Danger was 7 minutes long. We had 4 of those and it was really, really great. So every episode we'd see the beginning of the show, Dan Danger, and today's episode, Dan fights a poisonous snake. And then we'd see Dan facing off with the snake, and then the director would yell, cut! And Dan would go,
Make it stop! Make it stop!
and he was very scared of everything. So Dan Danger was voiced by the amazing voice actor D. Bradley Baker, who's not only been on Fairly Odd Parents and all my other shows, TUFF Puppy and stuff, he's been on SpongeBob and every other cartoon known to mankind. The guy is just amazing. He did Dan. A young lady named Aria Noel Curzon did Ruthie. She's fantastic. And Loretta Fox did the voice of Deb, and we just had a great time. We even had a guest starring role on one episode by the great Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond. He played a bully in an episode. When Dan has to go back to his old high school, the bully that used to pick on Dan was voiced by Brad Garrett. He's the brother Robert from Everybody Loves Raymond. And in fact, my wife Julianne even did a voice on the show as well. She played a lady cop who Dan falls in love with too, named Pepper. That was pretty funny. I thought for sure that show was going to get picked up. I was like, the characters were great, the character relations were great, the show looked great, I thought the designs were great, and Steve Marmel and I worked together great on the show. It was really a lot of fun. Everything about it to me was great. Anyway, so we get these episodes done. I'm over here making Fairly Odd Parents, we're making Dan Danger at the same time. I was very busy. It was a very tough time, but a fun time doing Fairly Odd Parents shorts and Dan Danger shorts at the same time. So anyway, they make Dan Danger, and they're going to focus test Dan Danger. And focus testing means they're going to put it in a room full of kids that they think it's appealing to, and they're going to see what the kids think. And sometimes that process can be amazing because the kids love it, and sometimes it can be a little less than amazing because some of the kids don't like it so much. I never got the full results of the focus test, but apparently they said the kids love the show, but they think Dan needs to be a hero all the way through. And that was what I got back from the executives. But then I got back from some other people who were there that weren't executives. They said the kids loved it, and I think the executives might have been just being a little too sensitive. Because sometimes people are more apt to listen to more of the negative stuff than the positive stuff. I wasn't in the focus test. Usually don't let the creators go to those types of things. If you're not ready for it mentally or in your heart, you can be a little upset by the results if the kids aren't jumping up and down at your show, or if all the laughs aren't coming like they're supposed to. But anyway, the focus test didn't go as great as they wanted, and so Dan Danger did not go forward. It didn't become a series. It just kind of stayed as 4 really cool episodes. But you know what? I've moved on to other great things and had a great time. So with that in mind, I confess that even though I loved working on Dan Danger, I had to let it go because it just wasn't time to make it into a series. And I also confess that I wanted to do other things too, and I had to move on. I just couldn't stay there because there were other ideas brewing. But one cool thing is Dan Danger's still there, and it's a wonderful idea, and I look at it as something that people can look at and learn from. I certainly look at it and learn from. I learned a lot doing Dan Danger. I learned a lot about great character development, great writing. And a couple of my favorite things from Dan Danger was, number one, we had a catchphrase, "You can't spell danger without Dan." I thought that was really funny. And I love the theme song, Dan Danger. Dan Danger. You can hear it later, but that's all it said. It just says Dan Danger in the theme song. And I also love the fact that it wasn't the only show I worked on with the word Dan in the title. I think you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, all right, guys, so that's pretty much it. I confess that I loved working on Dan Danger, and I also confess that at the time I was sure it'd be picked up as a series. But my other confession is that I learned how to deal with loss, deal with, I won't call it a failure ever because it wasn't a failure. It just wasn't ready at the time to become a series for whatever reason. So I confess that I learned from that, and I hope you guys do too. So when something doesn't go the way you want it to the first time, it just might happen in another way down the road. So don't ever give up on your ideas. And I confess, I also learned this: always have more than one idea. If Dan Danger had been my only idea, I'd be done. There'd be no other cartoons. But I had other ideas: Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, TUFF Puppy, Bunsen as a Beast, many, many, many other ones. And so always have another idea ready to go, because there will be times where it might not go forward and you may have to move on to something else. So I want you guys to learn from that. Learn from me. Learn from my pain. But it wasn't really painful. It was actually more, I think it's more like going to the gym. Where you go to the gym, it's painful for a second, but the results are really great if you stick with it. So I'm glad I've stuck with it, and I want you guys to stick with it too. Okay? Hey Heart fans, thanks for tuning in today. So awesome that you're here. It really means a lot that you guys are watching. Thank you so much. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Okay. Talking about creating a pilot of a cartoon. I know I've talked about this in a few other videos, but people are very curious about the process. I get a lot of fan mail, a lot of questions, people asking me, hey, I want to create a pilot, how do I do it? There's a lot of things that go into creating a cartoon pilot. It is not just drawing a simple drawing of a character, although that is part of it. You definitely have to start with designing a character. If you don't draw and you're a writer only, awesome. But if you're a writer, make sure you definitely have that character pictured in your mind, and make sure you can really develop that character out as far as personality goes, as far as likes and dislikes, what their family's like. It's interesting. If you look at some characters and some shows, for example, we'll take Peanuts, Charlie Brown. You never saw any adults in that world ever. Like, who's Charlie Brown's family? We see his sister, Sally. All I want is my fair share. All I want is what's coming to me. But the only time you hear the parents are, that's the adult talk, which I think is great in Charlie Brown. Other shows, like even Fairly Odd Parents, you see the adults in Fairly Odd Parents. I just moved this with my watch powers. But you see the adults in Fairly Odd Parents. And so coming up with those rules and coming up with the Bible of the world is very important. So as a writer, that's your task. And if you're an artist only, I strongly suggest you become a writer, because you're just going to up your skill set. You're going to make your value just that much greater. And if it's hard for you to write, try it. I think it'll be a lot easier than you think, because if you're an artist, you're already a storyteller. So just begin turning your drawings into stories. Don't just draw a character standing there. Draw the character doing something. You've all seen one panel comics, like comic strips or little comics in like magazines and things. It's just one panel only. But that one drawing will tell the whole story. So that is a great exercise for you to do. And that one drawing could lead to a very cool pilot episode of a cartoon getting made. Like, for example, Superman. He's a guy who flies, a guy in a cape who flies. Just one drawing of him flying in the sky is how Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster got started creating Superman. They pictured a guy flying through the clouds, and boom, rest is history. And I should pull here. Here's a Superman. We'll just put him. There we go, right there. There, he'll keep me company. He makes me feel safe. Okay, so creating a pilot. When you do a cartoon pilot, it's just like doing a pilot for a live action show. You have to have a list of characters and a scenario for what the story is going to be. What is the coolest story you could tell that'll introduce the world to your characters? We had to do this when I came up with a idea called Night and Dave. Years ago, I was working at Nickelodeon and had a deal where I had to create 4 pilots for them. It was a lot of fun. And I wrote this title down on a Post-it, and it just said Night and Dave. I thought it was just a really funny title. And I thought, who could work on this with me? Because one of the pilots I had to work on had to be something I created with other people. Nickelodeon gave me this deal. I had to create 4 pilots, 2 by myself and 2 with other people. So Night and Dave was the perfect one to involve other people in. So I called my friend Mike Doherty in. He was an artist who worked on TUFF Puppy, fantastic artist. I called Ray DeLaurentis, my story editor on TUFF Puppy and Fairly Odd Parents at the time, and Will Schifrin, my writer, one of my writers on Fairly Odd Parents and TUFF Puppy at the time. Had them all come in, and we just sat around. I said, here's this title. It's a medieval story, Night and Dave. What can we do? And we just came up with this really cool story about a kid named Dave, who's a poor kid from like a village, and he pulls a golden spork out of a stone, and he becomes the king of Wonderspork, this amazing kingdom. And he just wants to do a great job as the king. Dave is now the king. He has everything a king could ever want. It's going great for Dave. There's this girl who lives in the castle. She's like this inventor, like Leonardo da Vinci type of a character, and she helps Dave invent things for the castle to make things better. The old king would never let her, but Dave lets her now, and so they kind of become, close friends and almost like a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. And then there's this bad guy named Smackover, who's this knight who was sure he was going to be the king, but he can't now because Dave's the king, so all Smackover wants to do course, is Destroy Dave, and he tries to destroy Dave with the help of his magician assistant sidekick Disappeario, who is this silly magic character who doesn't like Smackover to begin with. So anyway, really fun story, really cool idea. When you're writing a pilot for a network like Nickelodeon, you have to have executives that are in the development area. They have to kind of oversee your process. I mean, Nickelodeon's gonna be spending potentially millions of dollars on this by hiring people and making episodes, and they want to make sure their money's well spent. So they have executives that they trust in charge, and so you've got to run everything through the executives, and that's a big part of the process. A lot of people don't really understand when you're working for a network like that. You think you just write something and put it on TV. I get people all the time saying, hey Butch, why don't you just make this and put it on Nickelodeon? It's like, well, it's not really that easy. You have to go through a long process. And the process for doing a pilot can be very, very time consuming, because you have to, once you write your script, which takes a number of weeks, then you give it to the network to look at. And that can take a number of weeks for them to get back to you with notes. So there's like, let's say it's 4 weeks to write it, and then you give it to them, and they come back in 2 weeks. So that's 6 weeks. It's a month and a half. And I keep moving this with my hand. My hand powers are out of control today. So then they have a number of weeks to get back to you. So now you're looking at a month and a half's gone by, and then you have to rewrite the script. That's a couple weeks. Back to them for notes. So the development process at a big network like Nickelodeon can take a very long time. And as you're writing this script, which is in development, you're really not even getting paid for it yet. You might have a small option fee they've paid you, but you're not really getting paid on a regular basis. So it was really a good thing for me that I had Fairly Odd Parents and TUFF Puppy going at the same time, because I was actually getting a paycheck too, because it does come down to getting a paycheck as well. If you're in show business, it's called show business for a reason. You're making money at it. So you want to get to a level in your career and in your skill set where you can actually make a living doing what you love, whether it's drawing or writing. So you're writing the pilot, and then at the same time you are doing character designs, and you're designing every character. In Night and Day, we had to design Dave, Gwendolyn, Disapperio, Smackover. We had to design the kingdom. What does that look like? What do the townsfolk look like? By the way, in this world, what types of medieval creatures are there? There's trolls, there's dragons, there's, gremlins, there's all that type of stuff. There's gargoyles and all that sort of thing. Do those creatures talk like humans? Are they silly? Are they scary? Are they kind of a mixture of both? You can have a silly dragon that's kind of goofy, then a really scary dragon that they have to fight at some point. So you're developing all this stuff in this world, and when each character talks too, keep in mind with a pilot, you haven't cast the voices yet. You haven't have any voice actors doing anything. So you're really having to rely on your own imagination and your own creativity. Is how do these characters sound? Do they have English accents? It's a medieval story. Do we do it in England, or is it medieval, some other netherworld you've created? You'll find out when you actually start doing a show, the voice actors, if they're really good, can really add a lot to the characters, and then it'll make it easier for you to write later on. Like, oh, Darren Norris will say Cosmo's line like this, or Jerry Trainer will say TUFF Puppy's line like this, or David Kaufman will say Danny Phantom's line like this. But when you're writing a pilot, it's really difficult because you're kind of by yourself a lot, and or if you're working with friends, you're with your friends a lot, and you're with this small group of people a lot. And we had to work on the pilot after hours, like everybody else would leave home to go home after work. We'd sit after work and order dinner and work on this pilot. But that comes down to, like, a lot of people don't want to stay after work. They don't want to put in the extra hours. And I ask you this: how badly do you want this? Do you want to work extra hard to achieve your dream? Will you stay after work? Will you work on the weekends when everybody else is going out for the evening? Will you stay home and do your project? That's really what it comes down to when you're doing a pilot, is how dedicated are you? And especially when the network's giving you notes back and they don't like your ideas, or they're changing your ideas. Not that they're being mean, but they had a certain thing in mind. We thought Dave would talk like this to her, or we thought Smackover would do this here. You really got to learn not to be offended. You can't be offended at that, because that's going to kill your career. If you get offended at every little thing that you are told to change, you're never going to get anywhere, because it's a creative process. And especially if Nickelodeon or a big network is paying the bills, they kind of have the right to say what they want. Like, look, we can't have this character in here because there's already a character in another one of our shows that looks a lot like this, so you need to change that. Or we've got another character named Fred in this show. We'd rather not name this character Fred. Or we don't want to have a chicken here because there's a chicken that's a star in this show. So there's a lot of hurdles to jump over as you're creating a show. Every show that's on TV right now, every TV show, every movie that you see in the theater, everything out there has been worked on for months and years before you even see it. Like a movie like Infinity War. Years of work on that movie before it even got to the screen. So you're really seeing a ton of people's life's work on screen when you finally see a TV show become a TV show, or a movie become a movie. It's a lot of development that goes into it, because you want to make sure the audience likes it. And then after we write the script for Night and Dave, that took about, I think we had to write about, I'm not even kidding, we probably had to write about 60 drafts of that pilot. I mean, every time you touch it and change one line, that's a different draft. It just gets changed. And so when you change sentences, when you change dialogue, when you add characters, you take characters out. There's characters you think are going to be the star of the show, and as you write the pilot, you realize they're just going to be they're just a side character. You never are going to see them, ever. There's no reason to even have them in the show. But this character you thought would never be a star suddenly is risen up to, wow, that's a really great role for this character. And so things do change. It's a creative process. Just be prepared to roll with it. So then we got the script done after about 60 drafts, not kidding. We had some executive situations in there where people were changing hands, executives came and went, and new executives come on and want to see things. So again, it's part of the process. All of that happens with the writing. Then we make an animatic, and I have to get the script storyboarded. Now, who's going to storyboard it? We have to find an excellent storyboard artist. There are some excellent ones, but the excellent ones are usually working, and they have big projects they're working on, and it's very hard to get them to do freelance. And also, you kind of don't want people doing freelance because, I mean, this isn't mashing anybody, but sometimes when people do freelance work, they don't take it as seriously as their day job. That's their day job. That's the job that's paying the big bills. The freelance work, sometimes they don't put their full 100% into it. So it was difficult to find a storyboard artist. We found a couple of really good ones, and I even jumped in on the storyboard myself because I knew exactly how I wanted to see certain things. And so we got the storyboard done, and then we had to color it. We wanted to color the storyboard because we were going to do an animatic of it as well. So we ended up recording the voices too. We recorded the voices of Night and Dave, and we actually cast Thomas Middleditch as Dave the first time around. We did the first pilot. We did 2 versions of Night and Dave. We had one pilot that was finalized and done. It was approved. We did it. After the network approved it, we did it. Recorded the voices. Thomas Middleditch was Dave, and then the network watched it and said, you know what, I think we can do better, and they wanted to even change it. It was kind of cool. They wanted to change it back to my original version I really had. So we actually took a lot of the stuff out that the network put in and ended up doing it more the original way that I wanted to see things, and that's the one we recast the voices again, and we even took Disapperio and changed him. We made him, he started as a tall guy, kind of a snooty tall man like this. He was green. We made him into a different type of a guy. He became a little smaller, shorter, kind of a bumbling idiot. Instead of being a highfalutin, sort of all-in-control, all-powerful magician like this, we changed him into a little, kind of an excited little guy like this, who kind of talked like this, and he was all excited, and he would just screw things up all the time. And so we now my watch came off. We ended up changing Disapperio, his character, completely. So things do change. I think we even added Bruce the Troll in there. Bruce was like this troll. He was like this troll guy that Dave would get advice from, and he became Dave's friend. Gwendolyn's role in the first pilot, the network really wanted her elevated hugely to be like almost the star of the show. And I'm fine with that if the character was strong enough. She was a strong character, but it kind of took away from Dave, and it kind of became the Gwendolyn show, which I wasn't too crazy about. So we ended up changing it back to making Dave more of the star. It's called Night and Dave. Makes sense. So we ended up making Dave more of the star, and Gwendolyn definitely had a huge role, but it was sort of like the Sam and Danny Phantom role. She was like Dave's sidekick, and but Dave needed to be the star because it was his show. And then we recast the voice of Dave. Thomas Middleditch had gotten a part on Silicon Valley at that time, and he became who he is now. He's a very big star. And so we got a guy named Nate Cordry in, who's a fantastic voice actor, who ended up doing the voice of Dave for the second version of the pilot. So it was a lot of fun. And Night and Dave didn't get picked up. I wish it had. I know this was around the time Nickelodeon picked up Harvey Beaks. They picked up Harvey Beaks, and they picked up a show called Pig, Goat, Banana, Cricket at the time. So Night and Dave got pushed aside for those shows, which is fine. Fine shows there. But yeah, it would have been nice if we got picked up, but it would have been a great show, and I worked with some great people. So that's kind of the story of Night and Dave, and I still have some really cool artwork from this show. I have a whole animatic I could show you guys if you want to see it. You could see the whole recorded shot version of Night and Dave. It's not animated, but it's a colored animatic. We colored the storyboard, so it's really cool. If you guys want to see that, let me know down in the comment section below, and if you want to hear any other stories from behind the scenes about Nickelodeon, some of the pilots I've done, let me know. Yeah, so this has been Confessions of a Nicktoon Creator, and I confess, I really thought Night and Dave was an awesome show, and I really thought the process was great, but again, it can be, if you're making a cartoon pilot, it can be a process that is very challenging. So if you're up to the task, I definitely recommend it, because it's a lot of fun. And the number one thing you got to do if you're going to pitch a cartoon pilot is you have to get an agent. That's a whole different story. All right, so that was the process of making the Night and Dave pilot, and if you guys are down for making a cartoon pilot, I highly suggest it. I think it's a great way to challenge yourself. You don't need to be at a big studio to make a pilot. You can make it on your own, or you can come up with the whole thing on your own and just in the privacy of your own home. So anyway, if you want to sell a pilot to a big studio, you're going to need to get a lawyer or an agent, because things have to be done legally, because a lot of big studios won't even see people unless they have legal representation, because they want to make sure everything's done on the up and up. They don't want to get accused of stealing ideas and things like that, so just legal stuff. And so getting an agent, if you come out to Hollywood, I highly recommend looking into getting an agent. If you're working at a studio or something, they can get you a really good deal, and they can represent you in contract negotiations and all that stuff. That's a whole different process. I could do a whole video on that if you want me to talk about that. Let me know down in the comment section below if you guys are serious and really want to learn that stuff. Let me know. I'll be happy to tell you how it's done. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Super fun. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, art gives you power. Use it wisely.
Hey Heart fans, subscribe here to keep up with me, Danny, Timmy, Dudley, Bunsen, and click here to buy shirts from my new merch store. Or go to heartfans.com. Click over here to watch my most recent video, and here to start a playlist related to this video. Whoa, check out that awesome fan art. To be featured here, use hashtag HeartFanArt and tag me. I'm on every social media platform known to man. Cartoon Butch out. Pencil drop.